After the Miami Dolphins lost in the wild card 26-7 against the Chiefs, they decided to make one of the most extreme changes to an offense that had just finished second in the league in scoring that they could possibly make. Mike McDaniel drastically changed their offensive philosophy, and now they're 5-7, have free fallen to 24th in scoring. They've been better with Tua healthy, but still a far cry from just a year ago. What happened to the 2023 offense that outscored the 49ers, Ravens, and Lions? We can begin to understand with these target heat maps, which show where Tua is targeted in 2023 versus 2024. The red is more than league average, blue is less, and in 23 we can see he pushed the ball deep down the middle of the field a ton, but in 2024, not so much. This is a crazy change, especially for what was such an effective offense, but to truly understand it, as we do, we need to use film study. However, before we do that, I want to thank this season sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a daily fantasy sports site where you can pick a player every day. They have any sport you can think of. You can predict a million different stats. If you want to make sports even more fun and win money doing it, PrizePicks has got you covered. The way it works is you choose 2 to 6 players and select whether or not you think they will go more or less than their projection. I'll take some lower numbers this week with Cooper Rush. I have no faith in the Cowboys. And I'll take Saquon more than 114.5, because I've never seen a number this high, and I just want to feel something. They're also doing a deal where if you just pop in my promo code Rollins, you put in $5, they will give you $50 for free. That's promo code Rollins. A recent ESPN article by Marcel Louis-Jacques quoted Mike McDaniel saying the Dolphins changed their offense to rely more on sustaining drives rather than relying on explosive plays. Last year they were top 5 in explosive plays of 20 or more yards. This year they're in the bottom 5. The core pillars of their philosophy have always been for Tua to get rid of the ball quickly. He always has had one of the lowest times to throw in the league, and that's by design. Well, in 2022, the first year of the Mike McDaniel regime, Tua's average depth of target, how far down the field he throws, was 10.1, third highest in the NFL. Then in 23, it slipped down to more of a league average 8.1. Now it's all the way down at 6.2. That is 40th in the league. The reason McDaniel changed his philosophy to do this is to create more efficiency, to keep the ball longer, to sustain longer drives. So this year, Tua has thrown 25% of his passes behind the line of scrimmage. That is 4% higher than Mahomes, who's number 2. And Tua's 17.9% screen rate is 3% higher than the next on the list. Instead of pushing the ball down the field to hit Tyreek and Jalen Waddle on skinny posts or quick dig routes, the Dolphins are force-feeding Devon Achane behind the line of scrimmage so they can dink and dunk their way down the field, keep the ball away from the opposing defense longer, and have a more sustainable offense that doesn't solely rely on the big play. Mike McDaniel's cooked up some crazy schemes to get his players the ball in screen passes so they can pick up major yak. Typical screens will have the running back pretend to block, then go out, or maybe cross the quarterback's face, but McDaniel is always innovating. This looks exactly like a normal pass with everybody going out on routes. Here, if you're the defense, you can't discern it's anything other than a regular quick game concept, but McDaniel releases the guard and center. Don't always see those two on a screen like this. And Achane touchdown. They'll force feed these screens no matter what. Typically on offense, if you have 3 over 3, you don't want to throw the screen because these two can block these two, and then you still have a defender for the receiver. But even on 3rd and 2 on a must-have it play, the Dolphins, at least this year, are gonna run screen after screen. They're also running quicker, underneath stuff more in general. We aren't seeing the posts and digs to Tyreek and Waddle, at least as much. They don't want to rely on the deeper hitting stuff, so it's much more Jonnu Smith instead of Tyreek Hill. Here's a good example of the philosophical shift in what the Dolphins are trying to do. Sure, they've never been a go ball team, but pre-snap they clearly have Tyreek one-on-one with no safety help over the top. And while Jonnu Smith does have off coverage, Instead of throwing to the $30 million man for him to win his one-on-one, which is what he's paid to do, the Dolphins have been feeding secondary receivers with inconsistent results. Part of the reason for that is defenses are playing softer zone coverage with two deep safeties, forcing the Dolphins to beat them underneath. Teams are still scared of their big-time receiving weapons, and this year, that plays right into what they want to do. But instead of their elite guys getting the ball, as I said, it's been more their secondary ones. Tua destroyed the Raiders a few weeks ago, and part of the reason was because they kept playing cover 4 quarters, which exposes the flats. Cover 4 is 4 deep defenders, meaning there's only 3 underneath, making it hard for the curl flat defenders to get outside to the flats. So when Tua sees the flats are open, he's able to rip the Raiders up, dink and dunk the entire day, and the Dolphins dropped 34 on him. The Rams varied their coverage and played Tampa 2 zone, which is 2 deep defenders with a middle run-through linebacker guarding the deep middle. So the Dolphins just took Jonnu Smith and ran him on routes over the middle to attack that open space, and Tua completed 71% of his passes. There has been good, but ultimately with this new philosophy, there are 2 main problems. You can't just live on underneath passes, especially when you play better defenses. And the Dolphins haven't been able to run the ball as well as last year to take advantage of the deeper safeties. Because their passing game is schemed to attack quick and underneath, if those routes aren't open, there's not a way for him to hit teams deep down the field. During the Green Bay 30-17 loss, there were plenty of times routes came open later in the down, but this offense isn't designed for Tua to sit in the pocket. It's always about him getting rid of the ball the quickest in the league. Last year, they would still throw quick, but the difference, they also threw deep. Their best concept was this skinny, shorter-ish post to Tyreek that Tua threw almost immediately, and they hit a ton of explosive plays. They've still run it this year, just more sparingly. Remember, now they don't want to live on these explosives, and Tyreek hasn't really had the same yards after the catch burst like he has in the past. So to tie this back into the Packers game, when Green Bay ran soft zone coverages that also kept this Tyreek post in mind, the Dolphins tried to adjust by throwing a deeper post over the defense. But this is a departure from their core philosophy. Now defenses are making them play left-handed, right-handed? This is not who they are or who their quarterback is. McDaniel was brought to Miami to create a hyper-specific schemed offense built around the hyper-specific strengths of his quarterback. Short throws with great accuracy and anticipation. So when defenses are daring the Dolphins to adjust to throw deep, Miami is getting outside of itself and outside of its strengths. Running the ball has also been a strength of theirs. It's Mike McDaniel's specialty, coming from the tutelage of Kyle Shanahan. Last year, Devon Achane set a single-season record with 7.8 yards per carry. Raheem Mostert led the league with 18 rushing touchdowns. But this year, Achane shriveled down to a league average 4.1. Mostert's nowhere to be found. And even with one of the safeties removed from the box to defend the Dolphins' passing game, still, the running game has struggled. In my opinion, it's more on the offensive line than anything. The guard play has been atrocious, where Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg can't get off their blocks, let alone climb to the second level, so the running backs have nowhere to go. Watch this mid-zone run as an example. Eichenberg's supposed to block Kenny Clark, Robert Jones is supposed to reach block TJ Slayton by crossing his face. Definitely a tough assignment. And Teron Armstead is supposed to climb to Quay Walker. But Eichenberg and Jones can't get any movement. On mid-zone, Achane starts his read at the right cheek of Eichenberg, then reads and cuts back in one gap at a time. But there's simply nowhere to go. The guards have been awful, but it's also the lack of attention to detail from Mike McDaniel. As I said, Armstead is supposed to climb to Walker with the tight end and fullback blocking the end, but he gets confused. And then Aaron Brewer is supposed to give Slayton a shove outside to help Jones on the tricky reach block, but he doesn't, and the play gets blown up. The Miami Dolphins under Mike McDaniel started 9-8, climbed to 11-6, but now are 5-7, and it's because of this philosophical change. The team is paying Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle big-time money to be their premier players. the faces of their franchise next to Tua, but McDaniel decided to move away from them and feature a dink and dunk control the clock offense that doesn't philosophically align with Miami's personnel. By instead featuring the screen game and throwing short to gain 5 yards a pop, rinse and repeat, the Dolphins' offense has fallen off drastically, and they are no closer to winning in the postseason, let alone are now mightily struggling in the regular season. This offense scored the second most points in the league just 1 year ago, yet have decided to move away from what was a prolific, explosive passing attack to now a below average one. To keep defenses honest, you always have to push the ball deep, and the Dolphins have been able to do that in the past. If they want to make a run at this final wildcard spot, it's time to push their chips to the middle of the table, return to their old philosophy, and push the ball deep.